Wait till it actually, there we go. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the GSFE Admins podcast, the podcast by and for GSFE Admins. My name is Lance Lennon. I am the tech director for the Eagle Grove Community School District in Eagle Grove, Iowa.
I'm Carl Hare, tech director at Ames Community Schools in Ames, Iowa.
Hey, Phil Trimble, IT director for Pocahontas Area Community Schools.
I'm Chad Fricks, director of innovation and technology at Spirit Lake Schools.
Hey, my name is Donnie Piercey. I'm a grade 5 social studies geography teacher and district tech innovation specialist for Eminent Schools in Kentucky.
Dude, your business card has got to be like 2 feet long.
It's like he also has the big checks, too. Has his full title on it.
Just a really tiny font. That's all it is. Really tiny font.
So, in case you haven't figured it out tonight, Donnie is our guest. Donnie is I would say, Donnie, you're a pseudo-admin. You do some administrative tasks for your district, but you're not the full-time admin. But there's a reason he's here, and we're going to get to that. But one thing I want to say before we get started is I kind of was going through and looking at the number of downloads, for lack of a better term, we've had for the podcast. And we have one podcast that's an outlier. Episode 14 or 15 has had over 2,000 downloads. So I'm thinking someone's got it on a loop. Whoever you are, thank you, because you're bumping our numbers up. On average, we get about 300 to 400 listeners per podcast. And this is our 18th episode. Doing my quick math, we are at about 9,500 downloads, getting really close to that. I think this episode with Donnie on, especially, could take us to that 10,000 mark. So we're going to celebrate a year and a half of doing this and almost 10,000 downloads. So thank you, everybody who listens, who watches. We really do appreciate it. But what we're going to talk about tonight, we're talking about security and internet awesomeness. We've had episodes before where we've talked about security. We've talked about some things that possibly could or could not have been breached. We've talked about two-factor authentication. One thing we really haven't approached is teaching our staff not just about security with their Google stuff, but is security when using the internet and using the internet properly. So that's why Donnie's here. Donnie was part of the Google curriculum, the Be Internet Awesome. He helped to formulate that. Carl and I got to go to Google back in early December, Carl?
Yeah, it was like the first week of December, I think.
They were hosting education staff in from anyone who could. They had them out in New York, California, Chicago. I'm sure they had another one too, but we were fortunate enough to get to go to Chicago. And they went through the curriculum. They brought in guest speakers, talked about all kinds of stuff, and having your students and your staff be actually aware of things on the internet. And great time. I had a great time, some great information. And so we thought, as good a time as any, we're going to ask Donnie to come join us. Carl and I both know Donnie from previous endeavors. But we just thought, what a great topic to have. So welcome, Donnie. We're glad you could be here. Can you give us just a little bit of detail? You said you're the social studies teacher, 5th grade. Give us a little bit about your background. How did you get into education?
That's a great question. So, well, just getting to education in general, my undergrad is in theology. Realized my senior year of high school, or college, you can't do much with that outside of a certain field. So decided to go back to school, got certified in elementary education. I had spent a lot of time working at summer camps, realized I enjoyed working with kids and watching them grow and develop. So decided, well, school would be going back to school and becoming a teacher would be a great way to kind of keep that kind of field going. And since 2007, I've been teaching 4th or 5th grade social studies. It's something that's been a lot of fun. And about 3 years into my teaching career, so this would be about 2009, I really learned that impact that bringing technology into your classroom, not just bringing it in, but bringing it in meaningful ways, can have on not only like speeding up my in-classroom workflow as far as like getting, having the students produce work and things like that, but it's also a great way to connect my students to the world, which recently has been an opportunity that I've been very thankful to have, to share just some of the work that my students are doing in the classroom with educators and people, not just across the United States, but definitely all around the world as well.
Excellent. So when we went to Chicago, and we talked about in previous episodes about the security thing, some of the things that we do, I know Carl just turned it on. Why don't you talk to that, Carl? What did you just turn on for your staff?
We finally set two-factor authentication enforcement. I had unofficially dubbed Monday to be Black Monday because I expected a whole lot of staff members to be locked out of their email on that professional development day. We had actually, it really has been an 18-month process for us at our district. About a year ago, we spent a lot of time getting the administrators in, going through the work, and getting them involved with two-factor and getting them started. Trying to emulate the, if it's an expectation we have for staff, we should have that same expectation for us as well. And then actually, I kind of stole some of your stuff, Lance, and worked up your video and used that as a template to kind of give my staff instructions on how to get two-factor set up, what it means, what it does. No, it doesn't mean Google's going to steal all your information. No, it doesn't mean I'm asking you to do schoolwork on a personal phone. And we did a lot of training and a lot of notifications. And then about 3 weeks ahead of that deadline, I started using GAM. I know it's a shock for everybody. To run a report that dumps information into a spreadsheet that I shared with my building tech staff to start tracking down my last holdouts. And actually, when we came to work Monday morning, we only had 17 staff members out of 700 plus certified and non-certified staff that hadn't set up their two-factor yet. And so I would say that transition went really well for us. But it was a really long process for a district of our size to go that far. We had a couple staff members that didn't have cell phone numbers, so it required a little bit of extra work. But yeah, we've been able to successfully get that done. And it's kind of the last piece in me securing things and using technology to try to secure things. And now I see things like Be Internet Awesome and some of the other tools that we learned about in Chicago is about trying to fix ultimately the biggest security risk that we have to deal with as admins, and that's our users. And so we can secure things all day long, but if you're going to hand out your password to anybody that asks, I'm sorry, that Nigerian prince doesn't really have any money. Please don't. So this to me it's a multifaceted process, but getting that two-factor enforced, it took a little work, but it was worth it. And I know that, Chad, you've got it enforced for your staff as well. And I would strongly recommend any administrators to go ahead and enforce two-factor and really help push that to your staff.
Yeah, I have it enforced for my staff and optional for students. Obviously, not every student from pre-K through 12th grade has a cell phone they can answer. And I think it could get annoying logging a whole room full of kids in and have the classroom phone ringing with verification codes. It might work. Okay, one at a time. Here we go. Bobby, you're first. Go. No, that would be a ridiculous situation. So we don't enforce it, obviously, for students, but they do have the option. And I do know that some of our older students that obviously have cell phones do take part in the two-step. Based on those same reports that Carl runs in GAM, I went through a similar process that Carl did as we rolled it out. We did PD on it, what it was. Here's the steps. You'll get these steps over and over again as the time gets nearer. But two-step is a big step. Beyond just turning it on and enforcing it, people need to know that if you get a verification code on your phone and you didn't just try to log in somewhere, you need to let someone know or just go ahead and change your password. Because if they get to the verification code step, they obviously know your password. So it's time to change that immediately.
Yeah, and we had talked, actually had the ability to talk to some of the developers at Google about the two-factor authentication. And one of the requests that we had was, if I enforce two-factor authentication with my staff, is how cool would it be if the first time a user logs in, rather than saying you have 2 weeks to set it up, it automatically takes them to the page where they have to set it up. And so that two-factor authentication becomes an immediate step rather than I have to do it step. And it was kind of neat that we had the ability to talk to them. And I think they listened. Will they do it? I don't know, because again, Google's ain't taking advice from us, but it's nice to know. We do have 2 viewers out there. If you do have questions, we've got the chat on the side. Feel free to ask the questions. So, Chad, one thing you said is you do allow your students to, if they want to use 2-factor, you allow it?
Yes.
Carl, do you?
Yep.
Phil? I think he's stuck. Phil, out in the hinterlands.
Yeah. He seems to be able to do the chat thing.
I think it's an opportunity for our kids to start to learn some of that process. I don't need to log into their accounts. I don't need to have access to it. So if that's something that they want to take advantage of, I'm not going to get in their way.
Excellent. So now we're going to go, Donnie. What do you guys do down in Kentucky?
So we don't enforce 2-factor authentication, but on the admin console, especially like in Eminence, that students do have the option to set it up. Like if they wanted to, they could. I know for staff, we don't enforce it. I mean, we're a small district. We probably honestly be easy to set up, but it's just not necessarily something which has like shown up as an issue yet. But like me and my tech integrator role, like working with a lot of the teachers who are brand new to the concept of 2-step, like when I'm doing a training, either like a workshop, every single time that you try to log into an account to show them something, that they always wonder, like, well, why is it texting you? Why is it asking you to text them this number? Why is this, why is it asking to do this? And when you explain what I've found, especially with teachers who are brand new to the concept, when you kind of show them how it works and explain how it's just kind of that extra security measure, they tend to buy into it pretty quickly. And even if it's not something that they set up on their school email account, it's something that a lot of them will just go and, hey, you just click this button here, get your phone number in there, and then you can have your 2-step set up and ready to go.
Yeah. And there's lots of different ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be a text message to you. You can use the app. I was talking last night on a webinar with other people is you can actually, I think you said you do this, Chad, that you use LastPass as your
to save all my passwords. So, no, just that's LastPass is a password manager. I don't, for anything on the internet, I don't make my own passwords. LastPass creates them and stores them. I obviously have to remember my LastPass password, and it can't log you into machines, obviously. So there are very few passwords that I actually create myself. LastPass does that job for me on the vast majority of everything. And then obviously, even with the LastPass password complexity, I think I have it set to 18 random characters, including all kinds of characters. I also turn on 2-step. So if they would happen to have a bot that can crack that string of weird characters, it's going to send me a text message anyway and say, do you really want to log into Twitter from Ethiopia? No, I don't.
Of course I do. It's fun. That's where we always start our Twitters from. Now, as admins, we have direct access to the admin council. Donnie, and we've talked before because you've asked me some questions about setting up some things. Kentucky runs it a little different. In Iowa, we have full control. We actually, our domain is our domain. You've said basically that. I want to know if it's the same still. It's a little different in Kentucky for you guys, isn't it?
Yeah, the way that the Kentucky public schools work is, in a nutshell, the Kentucky Department of Ed owns the domain kyschools.us. And then every district in state is a sub. So there's 120 school districts in Kentucky. So every district, the email address is a subdomain of that. So like I'm eminence.kyschools.us, and they still give the individual districts some freedom. We, as a state, like we use Active Directory to create accounts, but like in district, the individual districts can choose to use, it used to be called GADS. I'm not sure what it's called now, but the Active Directory sync. Right, so we're syncing it up in district, so that way we have like Google accounts for students, but the email and things still runs through Exchange, but it all runs through the Kentucky Department of Ed, if that makes sense. You know,
Yeah.
and just speaking from someone who's taught in Kentucky for 12 years, in one sense, it's really nice to have one universal system. I know, like, if I want to email this teacher in Shelby County, that I know how to get to their email address very quickly. I don't have to guess, okay, is this with, you know, M12 dot whatever. But sorry, that's the best I could think of. But at the same time, sometimes it's really difficult, because if you want to make like any type of little change, sometimes you have to send like that 3-page email requesting certain features to be added, which sometimes, you know, it's a bit of a hassle, but ultimately it's what I've learned over the past, like, especially 6 years, as I've started to get more and more plugged in the state. They are starting to become a lot more open to districts experimenting with just different things that they can do with the Google admin panel, as far as like turning on different features and functions for students.
Excellent. Thank you. So if you're out there watching us, not just listening, for some reason you enjoy looking at us, Phil is with us tonight. He does give his students the option. He's having some slower internet issues, and so we ask him questions, but he's not often answering us. So
I can hear you sometimes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we just heard you.
All right. There you go. I kicked my kids off Roblox, so.
Well, speak to two-factor in your district. Phil, do you run?
They weren't happy. Yeah, so we're just implementing the two-step factor with our staff, and that will be mandatory here in the next couple of months, and our students also have the option.
Excellent. So now we're going to get to the meat and potatoes, why we got Donnie here. So we talk about the things that we do as administrators and the kind of security measures we can put in place. But like I said, and what Chad spoke to and what Carla spoke to and what Donnie's going to bring the expertise in on is, how do we keep our students safe? It's more than just passwords. It's more than just getting access to things, because there's things out there on the internets that they don't necessarily need a password for, or that they don't necessarily have, we don't have control over their use of. So how do we make sure that they learn, and sometimes you call it digital citizenship, whatever you want to call it, but it comes down to what we saw in Chicago, and what Donnie had the wonderful opportunity to work on was Google's internet curriculum called Be Internet Awesome. So Donnie, can you give us a brief explanation as to what Be Internet Awesome is? Yeah,
so the basic idea about you know, the idea of a digital footprint and digital citizenship, like, it's something that teachers, you know, primarily it's usually like the library media specialist is constantly preaching to students, you know, beware of your digital footprints, protect your passwords, make sure that you're being kind online. And, you know, there really wasn't any type of program out there for students, especially for younger students, you know, kindergarten through 7th and 8th grade. You know, like, think about it. You as a teacher, let's say you're trying to show students what, you know, not to reply to spam email, or what spam email might look like. Like, you're going to really click on your spam email folder and pull up with the type of things that are going to appear in there. And so while, you know, Google looked and they kind of realized that, you know, there were some programs out there that were like a digital driver's license kind of program, but, you know, a lot of them were just nothing but checklists that maybe the teacher might look at a particular student, say like, well, you know, Chad, I noticed that he was kind to somebody online the other day. He never, you know, sent somebody an email that they weren't supposed to. Congratulations, Chad, you're a good digital citizen. You know, it's kind of this arbitrary branding. You make your way there. He's shaking his head. That makes me worried. But, you know, it's just nothing but a series of checklists. And schools try to do things with that. Maybe they said like, hey, we'll open up the internet to you once you make your way through this digital driver's license course. Or, hey, if you want your Chromebook, if you want your iPad, you know, you need to make sure that this summer, in addition to just signing your name on a sheet of paper, that you also, you know, complete, you know, this little checklist or course with your parents. So the Google team looked at, especially for kindergarten through 7th, 8th graders, and said, look, how can we come up with a new way to approach the concept of digital citizenship with younger kids? I mean, my daughter is 6 years old. I mean, she is well aware. I mean, she doesn't have an Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, or Twitter account or anything like that.
Are you sure?
She knows what those things are, right? And so as she gets older, as she continues through school, like I want her to be able to have access to a good curriculum that is kind of fun and engaging, that can help teach her not only about, you know, some of the dangers and things that can appear online, but also how she can turn the kind of the internet into a creation tool for good. And instead of being a place where it's constantly tearing people down, instead it can be a place where you can encourage and support others. So, you know, with all that in mind, Google said, well, let's create an online digital citizenship course for kids, but not just like a simple checklist or a series of activities. What they decided on doing instead was to create an entire game-based component in addition to a curriculum that teachers can use in the classroom. They call the program Be Internet Awesome. You can find it online. I mean, if you Google Be Internet Awesome, you'll be able to find it, or it's just g.co/Be Internet Awesome. And so the idea behind the program, right, is Google has given teachers this whole packet, this whole online resource curriculum full of sample conversation starters that you could have with your students and activities that you can do in your classroom. You know, everything from, hey guys, let's take a look at these 8 pictures of websites. And hey, in these small discussion groups, I want you to figure out if these websites are real or fake. You know, what is it about these websites that there are some of the things on this website that might tell you if this is real or fake? And so, you know, in addition,
or they could ask Trump.
Wah, wah.
There's the first one.
Yeah.
Will it be the last?
Boy, that was a trump card.
Wow, no, that was better.
I know. Anyway, so they have this whole online curriculum. What Google did was they created individual games that are meant to support and kind of be the backbone for that in-class activity, right? And the games are tons of fun. You know, they teach students in kind of fun ways. They have this, Google's created this whole fun land called Interland, where, you know, there's these 4 different magical islands that you can visit. And on those islands, there's different games that teach students everything from how to safely design and secure come up with a strong password, to, hey guys, let's figure out when we're sharing information, you know, what's the best way to go about sharing it? You know, does everything that happens to you in the world need to be posted online on like Instagram, Snapchat, or Facebook? So, you know, it's very unique. But I think that's what makes it cool. You know, I teach grade 5, and, you know, while we don't spend 6 hours a day doing Be Internet Awesome, as much fun as that would be, it's the type of tool that any teacher can start to bring into their classroom instruction, especially if it's a teacher who, you know, is a little bit apprehensive about about kind of letting their students use some of these social tools that's, you know, their Chromebooks or their may have. And it's a tool too that even like me as a teacher, I'll play through the games with my students, and it's a ton of fun too. I noticed that Carl looks a little distracted right now, which means he's probably playing one of the games as we speak. Carl?
He might be. What grade level would you say this is at? So middle school, lower, high school?
So, you know, Google's original target for the Be Internet Awesome program was grades 1 through 6. But, you know, speaking from experience, I've done this with kindergartners all the way up to 8th graders, right? And so, you know, granted, like the curriculum that they provide for you on the site, sometimes like if you were an 8th grade teacher, you know, you can tweak it a little bit. You know, you might use some of the examples, maybe change some of the discussion questions that they have on there. But it's a perfect fit for elementary school. And it's a great way, honestly, to keep that conversation going. And even about 2 months ago, Google actually released a whole online safety course as part of their education training. You know, same place you can go get like your level 1 and level 2 certifications. They have a whole education course as well that older kids and teachers can kind of work their way through. It's not directly connected to the Be Internet Awesome program. Like it's not one and the same, but they're both kind of approaching the same curriculum.
Great. And you talked about your daughter, and what Chad had said is, are you sure she doesn't have an Instagram account? The thing that worries me the most, I've got 2 teenage girls, both in high school, and the app that just bothers me the most is Snapchat, because it's not email, it's not text, and there is the chat feature in there, the message feature that maintains. But if they're doing the snaps, they'll go away, and I'll just see her do this. She'll just like click, and then she'll type something, and you're like, what the heck are you doing? It's like, well, it's how everybody communicates. And I'm like, well, it's stupid, because there's no trail for me. And my wife and I try to do a very good job of looking at their stuff and seeing what they're doing. But that one bothers me. I don't like Snapchat.
Well, Lance, if it makes you feel any better, everybody's moving to Instagram now. Snapchat is so 3 months ago.
Is it all Instagram? I'm still waiting for everybody to come back to Second Life and Friendster. So I'm just hanging out there till it comes all circle for me.
Hey, Donnie, had you ever used Common Sense Education's digital citizenship stuff?
Yeah, so actually the Be Internet Awesome team, right, in addition to getting the whole program like COPPA compliant, they made sure that their curriculum is aligned with Common Sense Media.
Right, because that's what we had used previously. So the jump to what Google's doing was pretty smooth, because we'd already been using the Common Sense stuff.
Yeah, and as you know, the idea
really important point here first. Is it COPPA or COPA?
When I hear COPA, I think Copacabana. But
so do I.
I think that makes
it a little
better.
I do. And I think Lola.
She was a showgirl.
Oh, that showgirl.
Oh, man.
No.
Stop it.
Yikes.
Yeah, but no, that's very important. Like you say, and being COPPA compliant and actually going through and meeting those requirements that as an educational facilities we're responsible for, and kind of putting that out there for the kids. I went through some interesting my presentations on security and stuff, and some of the new stuff, and every time you're always coming out with new key phrases. But one that I really do like is that human firewall. Mm-hmm. And that is probably your best defense in anything, is having people being aware and constantly looking at things. We have talked about different times on the show, and I finally did it. I actually did a phishing test on my staff, and it wasn't to catch them. It wasn't because if you don't pass, you're going to remedial email class. It actually was just to find out how prepared they were for these things. So I did go through a service. We sent out a phishing scam. It was really kind of very good. They sent out an HTML email, made it look like it actually came from, it said administrator at my domain, and it didn't have my name on it, didn't have my signature, but it was it all looked like the Google headers and the way you would sign in on a Google. And I had 2 people fall for it, but in all fairness, it might have only been one, because one person emailed me and said, this doesn't look legit, is it? And I said, no, it was from me. I'm just testing to see how people are doing. He wrote back, well, what happens if I click it? And I told him, oh, I don't know, click it and find out. So he may have clicked it. So that may have been the 2. No, that's what I'm saying. It may not have been 2. It may have only been 1. No, go ahead and click it. No, if they clicked it, it basically said, you just clicked something you shouldn't have. And then it pointed out, here are things you should have looked at and noticed right away. This isn't legit.
Well, and honestly, Lance, like that's some of the things in the Be Internet Awesome curriculum that they've provided for teachers to talk about with students. My 5th graders, that they have email, they check it frequently. It's not like every 5 minutes, but every now and then you might have that email thing that pops in there. And as they get older, I would much rather expose them, like to have like that safe, hey guys, here's what you do when these kind of things appear in your inbox. It's just like anything else. You approach it with the intentionality of, hey guys, just be aware of the of some of the dangers and things that are out there. So that way, if those kind of things ever do happen, then they already have those conversation starters and points, and kind of like that, almost like a kind of like an armor to protect them against it.
Well, it's all about that discerning eye. I read an article today, Phil. It's funny you mentioned Roblox, because my kids play Roblox. They love it. One is even using some of his allowance to pay for it. and you can hop onto private servers and things like that. And that kind of worried me a little bit, but I talked to my kids about what they're doing. But in this article, this guy who's basically in the same positions that we're in, says that his son had his account stolen because he was in Roblox, and this popped up on a private server that said, hey, because there's all these YouTube videos, how to get free in-game money for Roblox and blah, 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 blah. And this kid was playing stuff, and this pop-up window showed up, and he put in his Roblox credentials, and he lost his account. And so it's not just email. It's not just logging into Google Docs. It's not. I mean, it's literally everything. And you know, some of my staff will apologize all over themselves when they say, "Oh, I'm sorry to bother you, but this looks suspicious." Well, I'd rather you do that and ask me than click on the damn button and then not pay attention to what's going on. So it's, if we can start teaching that discerning eye, that to me is a great thing. I think really one of my favorite activities in the Be Internet Awesome, because yes, I've played them all, is that I like the sharing one. Who should get access to what? And I want to give it to this person, but not this person. And this is why I want to give it to this person. That to me is a great thing, because we have kids that overshare. Hell, we have adults that overshare things. And you kind of sometimes overthink, or you overlook the oversharing of things. And this is a great opportunity just to make kids aware and make adults aware. And I know that when I teach something, I always learn something new. You know, I love giving a lesson and helping talk through the kids and work through different things. And back when I was in the classroom, I'd always pick up something new, because the act of teaching, you're always going to learn something as you go through it. So it also, your teachers pick up something in the process too.
Yeah, one thing that Google really tried to do with Be Internet Awesome is that they didn't want the internet to appear like this scary, terrible place that kids should avoid at all costs. You know, their idea, you know, is not only to have, you know, to be aware of like what a phishing scam is, but to also, instead of, you know, constantly looking at, like, you know, you think of like message boards, and, you know, if somebody posts a photo of themselves like at a restaurant, like, okay, some of the little internet trolls and things that are dropping those fun comments and stuff below it. One of the main components of the program is what they call Be Internet Kind, right? Which honestly, like if I was going to pick a favorite like component of the Be Internet Awesome program, it's this, because, you know, it's meant to teach students how, hey, you know, everything that you post online doesn't necessarily have to be something negative. And if, you know, you feel the need to you know, respond to maybe like a post or something that somebody made, rather than always tearing that person down, instead, why not be supportive? You know, it's just that whole concept of, instead of using the internet to constantly spread bad news or to try to make somebody else look terrible, you know, instead try to use just some of these different social media tools to teach students that, hey, you can actually spread good messages and support online. And they got a whole series of famous authors and YouTubers to like talk about the Be Internet Awesome program. Like they got John Green to like respond to some comments that people made on his YouTube channel. And like he's like, well, I could put this and say something negative, but instead I'm going to say this, something positive. And it's just a simple lesson.
No,
for kids.
I'm the ilk that I sit here and I think, you know, I don't want them to have problems. I don't want them to experience negative things, but I would love for them to experience or do it if they're going to at this age with the consequences that they have now,
Yeah.
Which in my opinion, and I'm not talking like I don't want them getting the internet creepers and that kind of stuff, because that's out there too. But if they do end up getting an account hacked or they give away information that they shouldn't have given away, I think it's a learning chance for them at this age, a lot more so than when they're older. And there's a lot more damage that can be done with my information now than with some kids' information then. And the truth is, most of them at that age probably don't even know their social security number, information like that someone's going to get a hold of and do really nefarious stuff with. They may get into their account and send out an email or two. But I would rather they learn through bad experiences at a younger age. And I think this kind of also teaches that. It doesn't set them up for that. I think it gives them the information. but it also lets them know, like you said, it's I just read the side comment. We are fancy. I just think that at that age, it's a better time to have less consequential experiences.
Yeah, and I mean, but I agree with you. I mean, as kids, you know, you don't want to pretend that the everything is always fine and dandy in the world, right?
Awesome, maybe.
Or awesome. I couldn't think of another word, so I went with fine and dandy. But you know, I did want to say this. You know, one thing that Google wanted to do with this program, especially right from the launch, because it's COPPA or COPA Cabana compliant. You know, there's no login for it, right? So when students go to the Be Internet Awesome website, when they start doing these experiments, I know it's kind of weird to not have a login for it, but they just wanted to make sure that it wasn't a place where, like, you know, students had to log in. It was just meant to be a place where it's just a simple game and things that the students can play and kind of learn from, or in addition to some of the in-classroom activities that the teachers were doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not just the security stuff, but like you guys started to talk about the digital footprint things.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you have young kids seen, you know, like just recently, the death threats to Marcus Williams for missing a tackle in a football game. That stuff can follow you. And I mean, there's people of all ages being malicious with that particular incident, but hopefully none of our kids, you know, hopefully we've taught them well enough using tools like Be Internet Awesome to know that that's not the right thing, and they can spin that positively. And if you look at some of those threads, it's almost like some people have taken that bit of the lessons, because it'll be like a whole bunch of crap, and then someone in there will try to spin something positive in there, which is the more people we can get to do that, the less horrible of a real world it is. So just that part is pretty cool.
Yeah, I learned the other day that there are companies that, let's say that you're going to apply for a new job, maybe you're moving to another state. There's companies that you basically give them access to all of your social media.
Yeah.
And they search all of your social media for anything that could be construed as detrimental to your chance of getting that job.
So one of the stories, it was shared with me, and I like to share it. And there's absolutely no names attached because I got it secondhand. And who I got it from didn't include names, but she knew a young lady who was going to the University of Iowa and wanted to be a cheerleader. And one of the first stages of the interview process was they had to sit down and log into their Twitter and Facebook account and allow someone else to scroll through all the posts, because the university felt you're going to be a cheerleader, you're going to be representing the university. If there's stupid crap on here, you're immediately done. You don't even get to like kick your legs and cheer, shake your pom-poms or whatever cheerleaders do to try out. I have never tried out, so I don't know, but they were done before they even got to show their cheerleading skill, because the university thought, I mean, if there was something bad on there, definitely that they were going to be representing the university and didn't want to be attached to anything such as that. So things like that are out there, not just jobs, but things, other things you want to do are going to start looking at that stuff. I know when we, you know, asked for new positions, especially admin positions, we'll ask for, you know, your Twitter handle and things like that, and go digging a little bit to see what's out there. So the digital
we do that for every teacher, and anybody who's applying. Well, not anybody, but well, yeah, even associates too. When they're applying for a job, the superintendent usually comes into my office and says, "Here's the name. See what you can find."
Right. Yep.
Yeah. And we've had people not even get interviews because of that.
Right.
It's out there.
And it's our job to make sure that kids understand that, because the internet is forever. Once it's on there, it's on there for good. So they need to get that point drilled into their head early.
I tell a story when I talk about internet safety with our kids, is that I'm not kidding when I say this. I literally bought my house from someone I never met. The house wasn't for sale, all by word of mouth and internet searches. And I bought this house right here. going through and finding information about somebody and being able to contact them and just telling them out of the blue, I want to buy your house. So it's out there. Carl, there was a source when we went to Chicago. I can't remember the name of it. You actually asked permission for something different. Talk to that, would you?
Oh, FOSI.
Do you know what I meant talking about?
FOSI.
There you go.
Yeah. So I haven't been ignoring the conversation. I've been going back through all the tweets from our event, trying to find the things that we talked about, and there was some quotes and stuff that I absolutely loved. But yeah, FOSI. It's a federally what is it? A federally funded by a federal grant, or it's a big federal organization that puts together how to be a digital parent. They have amazing set of resources to help educate parents on how to deal with all of what we're talking about today. And they do different. You can bring them in, or you could say, hey, I want to host a special digital parent night. And they will give you all of the resources, the slide decks, the videos, the whole 9 yards. But what I did is I actually reached out to the lady that presented and asked, would it be possible if we created videos? So instead of having just a single night for digital citizenship night for our parents, because we have a heck of a time trying to find a night that works great for everybody. I mean, we have about 5,000 students. Coming from all sorts of different backgrounds. Their households are all sorts of a variety of different things. And so,
is Carl sketching out on everybody else? Okay.
What was that?
So you were really breaking up hard there and you started talking about it. Want to go back to when you say FOSI, that is the Family Online Safety Institute. So FOSI. And what Carl was saying is they have a whole host of information for parent nights. But what he did is he said he has a hard time bringing parents in. And so what he did was ask permission, can I make videos using these resources? So using your copyrighted material to then have available and on our web server for our families to watch. And they said, Carl?
Absolutely. So we're going to put that on our YouTube channel. We're going to broadcast it locally on our cable access channel, and really get it out to our parents as best we can.
So that was some really that there was a lot of neat stuff that came out of that trip. Yeah, so I'm glad you were going back through the tweets to look at stuff that was out there. So now, how did you get involved with this, Donnie? So you're not only a go-to, you were in the presentation materials.
I was honestly just through, I guess, just being connected with the Google for Education team over the last 4.5 years. They connected me with Connor, who's kind of the head of the program. And they let my students at the start just kind of beta test the game, which I think I actually still have links to, like the older, like the original versions of it. I think they still work. But they once a week we'd have these hangouts where, okay, my students did this week, this went well, this sucked, this needs to change, is this happening? Just some basic feedback. And then in about April, they said, hey, Donnie, we're going to go live with this soon. We're looking for some classrooms to just come out and kind of film a quick promo video for the program. Can we use your space? I was like, sure, why not? And then they said, hey, we'll be there in 2 weeks. Oh, cool. Okay, that sounds like fun. So, got all the parent permissions, all that fun stuff. It was a very, professionally, it was a cool opportunity, but it was really, honestly, my favorite part was watching I had 70 students last year, but watching them see what goes into just a short, 2-minute promotional video. They filmed about 7 hours worth of clips in my room. They went around town and filmed another 5 hours, all to shrink it down to just a 90-second clip, right? But I think the best part, the team has still kept in touch with me and some of my former students that were in the film, just ones that they got to know. And it was obviously a neat opportunity for them as well, because just say hey, every now and then this Googler's checking in on me to making sure that I'm still being internet awesome. So It was a very special chance that I had in my classroom.
Yeah, and Connor did lead the workshop or the day in Chicago, and I thought just I like got to see him for 6 hours or whatever, but he seemed like a really neat guy. So I've had the experience too. We did have some filming done in our school district also, and so the experience is incredible. And I don't know if anybody else can talk about it yet.
Nope, I can't.
Okay. I didn't know. You could have put it in the text. But it's a really neat experience for the kids to see that, because they came, the expeditions video came out of our district, and the Burj Khalifa one. And it's just incredible that, the crew that came in, the filming they do, it was all over town. And people were just like, we're in a town like Emmett. It's just a tiny little hamlet in north central Iowa. That was, is my audio going weird? Okay.
One of the things that I liked about, while Lance is getting his audio sorted, if mine doesn't suck, was the whole day and all of the work that Google's been doing on Be Internet Awesome and digital safety. I had to find my favorite quote from the day was "Don't be fear-mongery." It was, you don't try to scare because that's what digital citizenship used to be. They'd show that video of the creeper that found out that Sally goes to school at 8 o'clock in the morning and goes to this school because of this. And if you tell anybody this, you're going to get stabbed in the face. And so I really like the switch to being proactive and not try to scare everybody, but take the opportunities to learn. It says, don't be fear-mongery.
I kind of would have stuck with the stabbed in the face. Is my mic better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All righty. So anything else you want to talk to? We're at 7:47. We got about 12 minutes left. Any key bits of information that we want to put out? Chad, you had something I thought you said earlier tonight before we went live, revelation that came.
Oh, just since we are GSFE admins, there's been some pretty nice changes to the council with how things are being organized in the admin council, as far as like the layout of it and how you can select different things and see the, like inside, for instance, the Google Apps looks very different with checkboxes and it's listed differently. And that's starting to propagate to other pieces. So they're making some nice changes, as always. Keeps us GSFE admins on our toes. You never know when you're going to go in there and see something different. There is a release calendar, which we always recommend people in our positions follow. But I got my new look weeks before the release date on the release calendar. And I usually don't look that far ahead at the release stuff. I have my calendar view on weekly view. So if it's happening that week, I know. But this was a couple weeks before, and it was a surprise that day. And I was the first out of us to get that new view because it took you guys a few days at least to see that new stuff. But yeah, some changes happening for sure.
Yeah, I liked the changes to the group stuff. That was... I don't know if that happened between our last one and this one. We skipped December, so I don't remember if we talked about that at Midwest or not, but I love the new groups interface.
Right. Now, if they could just streamline the Android app approval process just a little bit more, I would be...
Or a lot a bit more.
I would be happy. If they could just give us the goddamn Play Store back and give it to teachers, that would be a golden moment, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Did anybody see Bill Gibson put on the community today about the security site?
Ironically enough, no.
It fits into here. So if you go look on the GSFE admins community, he posted today introducing the Security Center for G Suite, security analytics, and best practices from Google. So they actually go through and talk about security. A very, very nice addition from the Googles. I'm sure we had all kinds of hand in that getting created. Our next podcast, we will be live from the iTech IT conference, live from Nevada, Iowa, not Nevada. Carl will actually be in Nevada with Donnie. Where are you guys going to be?
The Strip.
Stop it.
Hold on. When is Carl going to be there? Because he is supposed to be doing a workshop with me the day before.
Carl's taking a red eye.
The red eye from Las Vegas to Des Moines.
There are some, absolutely.
I thought Des Moines didn't have any flights that came in after 10.
No. It's a red eye where it comes in at 8 o'clock the next morning.
He flew overnight.
Okay.
They leave.
So when are you going to Las Vegas?
We'll be there on Friday. Yeah. Yeah, the plane that Carl's taking, supposedly it's one of those ones like Indiana Jones. You have to get out and pull the prop down to get it started.
I'm just going to stand and flap my wings is really how it works.
Just got to get out and push. Like a running start. It does a good job.
Actually, so that's the Google Geo Institute before the EdTech. It's not the full institute. This is the one day.
Yeah.
This is so. I mean, if you want, I can talk about this for.
You got time. Go for
4
it.
hours if you'd like. But
no, not 4 hours. You got 5 minutes.
Oh, cool. So the Google Earth education team, which wink, wink, nudge, nudge. One of their goals is Google Earth to eventually become a core service, not just an additional. But anyway, they have a whole frequent FAQ about why you should enable it for your schools. That's a whole nother issue. We'll get to that. But anyway, so they've put together a team of educators, which they call the Google Earth Education Activity Board, which we kind of run these little workshops for the Google Earth team all around the world. And this Friday, we're actually doing one in Las Vegas. It's going to be fun. So the morning will be just a short little workshop about not only how to use Google Earth, but what are some ways that you can create with it. And then that afternoon, we're going to go racing on some dune buggies, try not to kill each other or Carl or stab him in the face, whatever that was from earlier.
It's awful face stabby.
I know this podcast got dark quick, but that afternoon we're going to be mapping with some 360 cameras the area where the dune buggies are going to be, and then showing them how they can take those images, put them on Google Earth, and then start to create some stories with it. So the idea is the attendees will hopefully learn a few things, have some fun, but then be able to go back to their classrooms with some ideas that they can bring to their districts.
Excellent. That sounds like a heck of a workshop for maybe the fall iTech conference.
That'd be fun.
That'd be amazing.
What could we map in Iowa?
I don't know, but I don't think they'll let dune buggies in downtown Des Moines. Maybe.
Segways. But what about segways?
They did take Lance's electric golf cart away from him.
I know. There are a lot of things in this state that are my fault.
Yeah.
It sounds terrible, but it's we can't do that. Thanks, Lance.
Yep.
The Lance rules.
Yeah, so Lance, we need to get you a T-shirt for iTech this fall that just says that. There are a lot of things in the state that are my fault. I'll make that on Woot. We'll get that on Woot. We'll get you one.
Always out there. Now, one thing I do want to promote also is ISTE is coming up this summer. For a lot of us, we are Midwesterners, and ISTE is in Chicago. So for the four of us, the hosts of the show, it's as close as it'll ever get probably for us to Chicago. Carl and I's workshop did get selected. So we have a Sunday workshop, afternoon workshop, Chromebook deployment, Chromebook selection. We'd love it if people would come to that. One other thing I'm going to ask is if you get to this before January 26th, they are also doing the People's Choice selection for ISTE, and my Google admin security best practices. Carl's shaking his head. No, that hurts. That really hurts. Vote for Lance.
Vote for everyone but Lance. I think is what Carl's trying to say.
That hurts even more. You can actually vote for more than one session. So
I registered extra ISTE accounts just so I could vote against Lance.
I hear that everything at ISTE is Lance's fault.
Yeah.
There are no signs in Chicago yet.
Yeah.
I might be buying that billboard right now.
but so you don't even have to be an ISTE member. You can go and create an account. If you look up, just Google ISTE People's Choice, and you can find it if you want. I'd appreciate it. So, anything else out there for the good of the cause?
Where's Mitch?
He's ice fishing.
Oh, thank you, Chad.
He's a professional ice fisherman now.
He's a professional something.
So yeah, we should probably go ahead and talk about that. So Mitch has moved out of the education world. He is now working for a marina up in Okoboji. His job, selling boats and doing IT for the marina. His job description has changed. His job requirements have changed. So he has bowed out of the GSFE Admins podcast. We do owe him a very big debt of gratitude because the community, which this came out of the community, and the community came out of his original GSFE Admins website. So it was actually the GAF Admins. So it was actually his idea when he was in grad school for a project that actually was the, don't know if you want to call it the grandmother of all of this. So we will miss Mitch greatly. He brought a lot to the table, but he is doing a lot to ice fishing. And
he is.
He's in
Currently.
his ice hole.
You don't
right by his ice hole.
Oh my God!
No,
You don't sell many boats in Iowa in the winter.
No, you.
But you don't.
However, he did.
The marinas are not busy in the winter, except for winter games weekend around here. So,
the shop is busy because the shop is usually aren't they doing like the maintenance on the boats and the cleaning of boats and storing the different boats?
Usually, the marinas have a big chunk of time that they shut down in the winter.
Okay.
And
Mitch's job was to get out there with a blowtorch and just kind of melt the ice for the boat.
Keep the boats going, right?
Yeah.
But I did get some news from Mitch the other day that he has successfully converted the marina to Google Apps.
I knew he was going to try that.
And they were there. He just cut over all the MX records the other day, so they are fully Google email, and they are enjoying the capabilities of Hangouts in a business setting.
Oh, nice.
So we had a little bit of a conversation about that for sure. And
if you remember from earlier episodes, Chad and Mitch, they don't live back to back to each other, but houses were close to each other.
See each other's house. It's less than a block.
So yep. So thank you, Mitch. You will be missed.
Thank you, Mitch.
Other than that, if we've got nothing else, we will say good evening to everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. And if you have any questions, go ahead and reach out to us, and we'll see what we can do. So our next show will be live from the iTech IT conference in Nevada, Iowa. Everybody else, have a great night.
Good night.